Hi, this is Billie Beene here with Truth by Billie Beene. Today's date, November 19, 2024. Time in Texas, about 11 a.m. Some of my sources: God in the Bible, Patriot, Subscribers, TFI Global, Forbes, Dialogue Works, Larry Johnson, Scott Ritter, Judge Napolitano, Pepe ESCOBAR, BPEARTHWATCH, Beston Taylor, Stan DEYO, SG Plus. Some of the things we'll cover: the sun flares, the U.S. cold is coming, Iran has nukes, JB millions to the Houthis, and the U.S. hits Russia. President Trump, no World War III. So let's get started. I had brought out some information in my last video about a potential for FEMA and the deep state to bring something about in the new Madrid seismic zone, to push the neocon agenda, war, lock down and control the American people, Jade Helm plus. So this came out from ETN News. Beginning November 16, we've had some earthquakes in the new Madrid seismic zone. We had a 3.2 in Missouri, 5.2 miles deep. Tennessee, we had a 2.8, very deep, 6 to 8 miles. Oklahoma, we had a 3.2. We're having earthquakes down into Texas. We had a 3.1 and a 3.5. This is in the last 2 to 3 days. And I noticed Mary Greeley is bringing out, we had in Alabama this morning a 2.4. So we see some shaking going on in this area. And now what's going on in space weather? We are, according to NOAA, we are at solar max for solar cycle 25. That means the sun has an 11-year regular cycle where it switches its north and south polarity, a pole shift. Solar max occurs during the 11-year period when the sun is most active. Now, yesterday we had 9 M flares from sunspot 3901. That is turning to face the Earth. And so we can expect possibly the next few days solar flares, CMEs, and so on. Now, I find this very interesting. We had a new occurrence in our skies, a different type called noctilucent clouds, which are clouds that appear in a line pattern. And we saw that in the last few days in Van Horn, Texas, which is located close to El Paso. And that was due to SpaceX launching a rocket from Malibu, California, and it produced this called NCL type clouds. So a picture was taken in Van Horn, Texas on November 18. Normally, the NCL type clouds appear only in the Arctic in the summer near the poles. It's a combination of water vapor and meteor dust, but we're seeing it now in our skies produced by rockets. And these NCL clouds are called night shine clouds. So if you see something like that in the sky, quite probably it's due to a rocket being launched somewhere. Now we have a major cold front coming into Texas. It's going to bring very cold weather to about 3/4 of Texas, beginning today's Tuesday, so it's coming in tonight in the morning. Wind chill, low temperature in the Panhandle. This area of Texas will be in the 20s with the wind chill and the teens. Across half of Texas, we'll have lows in the 30s. Down to South Texas, we'll have lows in the 40s. So these cold temperatures are going to last for a few days. Friday, we'll have a warm-up. So that's going on, cold weather. And now we have this coming across Washington, Oregon, California. And this weather phenomena is called a bomb cyclone. We have a cold front, we have warm air. And what occurs is something that can be compared to a hurricane. It's going to bring in 70-mile-per-hour winds, 6 to 20 inches of rain, feet of snow. It's associated with an atmospheric river, and this will occur in Washington State, Oregon, California, Wednesday. And during this time when the bomb cyclone is occurring, it is again compared to a hurricane in that you have a drop in the barometric pressure of 24 millibars in 24 hours. So the U.S., cold, including Texas. And now we have this from Hal Turner. So I'm going to begin covering now what's going on. We know the deep state is trying to juice up World War III. And President Trump is standing firm against that. So what do we have going on? We have Russia, Ukraine, and now we have Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. We've had a second communication cable cut or damaged that goes from Lithuania to Sweden. And then yesterday we had an underwater cable cut or damaged that went from Finland into Sweden. So we see all eyes are on Sweden. I believe it's a deep state action. We did have the U.S. via Ukraine. We know that Ukraine is a proxy for the U.S., NATO, and we have heard in my last video I put out the JB spokesperson for the deep state and the U.S. government said he okayed the U.S. to use ATACMS to hit deep inside Russia. France stood up and said yes, and the scalp can be used, and Germany okayed Taurus, and we had the UK okayed the use of Storm Shadow missiles. Okay. So we see today, according to an interview, I believe that was on Dialogue Works, of Pepe Escobar, saying that today France is backing off from this, and Germany and the UK, because we have Russia standing up and saying, if those missiles are launched, because these missiles, all except the Taurus, the ATACMS, the Scalp, the Storm Shadow, all require input by the U.S. military. So President Putin and Russia stood up and said, if you use these missiles deep inside Russia, we'll look up on those nations' missiles as bringing those nations as active participants and likely targets for reprisal by Russia by strikes inside those nations. We did have overnight the U.S. via their proxy Ukraine putting a ATACMS. So it went from Ukraine 75 miles into Russia to Russian traditional territory, Bryansk. I believe multiple missiles were set off by the proxy Ukraine, 4 to 5, that were all taken down by Russia. Nevertheless, this is going on. It was to the target near Bryansk was an ammo depot. So that happened. And it's Hal Turner who is reporting on the cable cuts from Lithuania to Sweden and also Finland to Sweden. Now, Dialogue Works interviewed Pepe Escobar. Pepe is a globally recognized journalist who now lives in Moscow and has good information. And he's talking about JB. So I put out yesterday that JB and Starmer from the UK went to a meeting. So we have the US, we've got South America, Brazil, and Pepe puts out that JB took a picture in front of a fake rainforest where he obviously was reading from teleprompters. And this comes out, yes, the proxy Ukraine used the U.S. ATACMS. That has happened. And Pepe Escobar puts forth, the deep state has declared war on Russia. It's believed that the deep state is controlling NATO. The American people, once President Trump is back in, want America to withdraw from all globalist organizations, UN, NATO, WHO, IMF, and so on. We prefer to sail forward as an independent nation. Judge Napolitano also interviewed Dr. Gilbert Doctorow recently, and he puts forth this. He's also a specialist on Russia, that Europe is backing away. We have Pepe Escobar is also putting this out, that Europe, UK, France, Germany are now pulling back from saying that it's okay to use their missiles to strike deep inside Russia. Pepe Escobar compares them to chihuahuas and says the chihuahuas now today are saying, no, we don't want our missiles used to strike inside Russia. And we have Dr. Gilbert Doctorow saying, we're seeing a facade being put before us, trying to juice up World War III. But many nations, and certainly the peoples of nations, don't want war. And this is coming out from President Trump, who in a public speech called Ukraine a proxy and made this statement that all shooting has to stop. And President Trump identified forces behind the efforts to begin World War III, calling them the deep state. And President Trump publicly said, America first. And now Scott Ritter came out on Redacted. I found it very interesting, putting forth that possibly what we're seeing in the press is actually a CIA psyop regarding using US, UK, Germany, France missiles deep inside Russia. He puts forth this could possibly be a psyop, and he puts forth two examples. We recently saw the Washington Post, the New York Times come out with fake stories. One was that as soon as President Trump was elected, that he had a phone conversation with President Putin. That has been proven false. Second is that Elon Musk met with the Iranian ambassador to the UN. That was also false. So I believe Scott Ritter has a sound basis upon which to put forth this rhetoric we're hearing. Appears to be a CIA psyop to propel many nations into World War III. And we have this. President Putin has made public statements via one of his spokespeople, Medvedev, who was previously a president of Russia, that Russia will consider those nations who use their missiles to strike inside Russia as being participants to the conflict and make themselves military targets. And puts Pepe Escobar puts this forth. NATO is inside Ukraine operating, and NATO is also operating outside Ukraine to push the world into World War III. And the deep state, via NATO, pushes for war. Pepe Escobar says it's not working. No, many nations, including a majority of American citizens, are now awake and able to discern much more clearly what is truth and what is not truth. Dialogue Works recently interviewed Larry Johnson, previously with the CIA, talking about the ATACMS is not going to do much. It has a range of 200 miles. But the French Scalp and the UK Storm Shadow have ranges up to 500 miles. But we see the UK and France today pulling away from using their missiles to strike inside Russia. And what's going on in Israel and Lebanon? Larry Johnson reports the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, has suffered heavy losses, and they are not able to penetrate inside Lebanon. So we have Israel, Lebanon. So the IDF so far has not been able to penetrate but several kilometers inside Lebanon when they are taken down by the paramilitary group Hezbollah, believed by many to be a proxy for Iran. Larry Johnson puts forth that North Korean troops are not fighting with Russia against Ukraine. Now, Colonel Douglas McGregor put out about in the last 2 to 3 weeks that North Korean troops have been training inside Russia for years. So I see pro and con as to whether North Korean troops are actually inside Russia acting in a combat role. And we have this. So Larry Johnson says the IDF has suffered heavy losses. And he says Israel has a population of about 7 million, which would be equal to New York City. And that since last October, that would be October 23 through now, the IDF has sustained 1,000 deaths of their soldiers. And the Israeli people are against this. And Larry Johnson puts this forth. Israel did not strike an Iranian nuke site, as some sources have been putting forth. So we see pro and con, psyop and truth being put forth to achieve the deep state objective of juicing up World War III. But most people, particularly those who listen to alternative news sites, are not buying it. Now we have this from Hal Turner. Yes, so right after JB and Starmer and Macron announced, yes, you can use our weapons inside Russia in the past 2 to 3 days, Russia hit Ukraine with 120 drones and missiles. That has taken down 80% of their power grid. Their winter temperatures are currently in the 30s. And this included hitting near nuclear power sites, so that most of the nuclear power sites have several, maybe 5 to 8 reactors or so forth. So this hit took down many of those reactors that provide cooling for the nuclear power plant, and left at a minimum maybe 2 out of 8 functioning. That was to also bring down the power grid. And we have this. Sweden, in the past 2 to 3 days, put out 5 million pamphlets to Swedish people. Stock up on food, water, and know what to do in case you are attacked by nukes. So we see Sweden as some type of central point. So we have Lithuania, we have Finland, we have Sweden, and we're seeing cables, underwater communication cables from Lithuania to Sweden, Finland to Sweden being cut or damaged. We have Sweden putting out to its people, prep for a nuclear attack. So Sweden appears to be some type of hub. We have this. President Trump may nominate to head up the FBI Kash Patel. The CIA will be headed up by John Ratcliffe. Now, President Trump has not formally said, this is rumors, that Kash Patel could be a nominee to head up the FBI. And we know he has named Matt Gaetz to head up the DOJ, Kristi Noem, Homeland Security, Tom Homan, the border. So President Trump is putting good people in positions to bring about America first. Now, Beston Taylor brought about put out a flash talking about, yeah, these weapons being okay, U.S., UK, France, and so on, to use inside Russia. Now, Stan DEYO, physicist, puts out that President Trump does not want World War III, and that the deep state inside the current U.S. government is trying to foment civil disorder inside the U.S. And I believe we're seeing this with FEMA in Michigan, FEMA also in North Carolina. I believe that FEMA is a tool of the deep state, being pre-positioned to come against the American people. And also, President Trump is now putting out information about the U.S. coming against the cartels. I see Sheinbaum, the deep state president of Mexico, putting out timid, negative statements about President Trump. Yeah. And Besson Taylor put out, many sources say President Trump is making great appointments. And now we have this. President Trump is saying, I need to be in office 2 months early because the deep state is now fomenting World War III. So that's going on. Now, Stan DEYO is an expert on the sun, and he says, watch out for sun activity. And that correlates with the initial report I put out today. Now, Stan DEYO is putting this out about nukes. Now, when I use the term nukes, I use that term because most people can identify and be scared of anything escalating to using nukes, but modern militaries, the US, China, Russia, plus, have much more lethal weapons than nukes. So, yeah. But still, when we hear the possibility that a nation may use nukes, yes, it is time to go to our prayer closet, definitely. And Stan DEYO puts this out about the deep state wanting to use nukes and have really increased the push for World War III since President Trump won. Now, Iran, Stan DEYO puts out, Iran possibly has nukes, but we have other sources that say Iran does already have nukes. And Stan DEYO is a big proponent of Christian theology, doctrine, the Antichrist. And one of his candidates has been Mohammed bin Salman, the Prince of Saudi Arabia, and a leader in the Middle East. But this is new information Stan is putting forth about MBS, that he is in possession of some type of ancient artifact that may give him some type of additional power. And a lot of us are familiar with the prophecy put forth by David Wilkerson in 1973. David was the author of Cross and the Switchblade, a pastor of a church in New York City for decades. And David Wilkerson's prophecy in 1973 is that the U.S. would be attacked by China and Russia simultaneously, and the U.S. would not be able to get their nukes out of the silos. Now, that correlates with additional prophecies by Henry Groover. I believe Dmitry Duduman also spoke along these lines. Now, we know that God is in charge and certainly listens and directs his activities in response to his people on the ground as they are daily contacting God. And we know that God can turn away from judgment as he did in Nineveh. Beston Taylor put this forth. Yeah, the intel is that these long-range missiles have been approved. Now, this is new information. So we saw Hal Turner. We saw the okay for the long-range missiles into JB Plus, into Russia. And I believe that came out Sunday. And we had that information that Saturday night, about 11 p.m. into Sunday morning, 1 a.m., that many private jets were flying out of the U.S. Now, Stuart Best is a retired corporate pilot who also piloted for many billionaires. And he said his observation was typically on the weekends they stay home. And he says this unusual activity by the private jets flying out of the U.S. over the weekend is out of the norm. So he places credence on this factual incident to support thinking that, yes, something is going on inside the U.S. And we know for the past several months, sheriffs and police in the U.S. have been receiving warnings from the FBI and Homeland Security. Something about civil unrest. I submit it is not civil unrest by the American people, but rather we could see protesters paid for by the Soros organization. We could see the UN coordinating civil unrest via the illegals that the JB deep state U.S. government has been allowing in. But civil unrest by American citizens is not likely. It's not believable. The American people, for the most part, are very happy President Trump was elected, and we look forward to a better future. We look forward to world peace. And we have this from SG. So apparently there is something still going on. This is the U.S. Supreme Court, the Loy Brunson case, the one that would clearly demonstrate that 2020 was won by President Trump and that there was gross voter fraud. So it's believed and coming out that the Supreme Court had determined this did occur, which means President Trump legally is now president and will be president in the next term. So the decision has not yet been made public, but the U.S. military is fully aware. And it appears that out of this will come prosecution of 385 members of the U.S. Congress who voted to put JB in and not give an additional 10 days to investigate widespread voter fraud claims. 385 people in the U.S. House and Senate and I have put forth, these individuals engaged in a political coup in January of 2021. And this is coming out, yes, once the Supreme Court makes known to the public the positive assessment of the Brunson case, proving that President Trump did indeed win in 2020, and that Congress engaged in a political coup. Yes, so that's going on. Why do you think they're trying to juice up World War III? And now we have this from Dr. William Mount. Yeah, one of the things we see the deep state via JB trying to do everything they can to bring about World War III. Dr. William Mount brings this out. JB just okayed $250 million to the Houthis. Now, you say the Houthis have been firing on American ships. The Houthis have been containing shipment through, so the Houthis are in this area, Yemen. We have the Red Sea. We have Israel. The Houthis, for the past year and a half, have been blocking shipping through the Red Sea to the Suez Canal and have been firing on U.S. ships. Dr. William Mount says JB okayed $250 million to the Houthis. Why? Because JB operates as a pawn for the deep state. The deep state typically funds both sides to keep a war situation going. So we see JB outing himself directly as being a pawn for the deep state. Now from BPEARTHWATCH, President Trump is weighing prosecuting generals who participated in the withdrawal of the U.S. military from Afghanistan. That was about in 2021, 2022, ordered by JB, a proxy for the deep state. And during this, the U.S. left behind billions of dollars of equipment in Afghanistan. 13 U.S. soldiers were killed. The guard dogs were left behind and were slaughtered by the Afghani people. And President Trump weighs bringing court-martials against the U.S. military generals who headed up this untimely and devastating leaving of Afghanistan, putting in jeopardy and resulting in the death of U.S. soldiers and most likely the death of tens of thousands of American citizens who were there working on behalf of the U.S. government. The JB, proxy for the deep state, simply left all those American citizens there. So that's going on. And now we have this. ABC News. Speaker Johnson this past weekend at Mar-a-Lago received instructions from President Trump as what to do about the U.S. economy based on the government budget. And what came out is Speaker Johnson will put forth a temporary budget to keep the U.S. government open, but it will be short term, December into early January. So that's going on. when President Trump is firmly back in the saddle and can put forth his plan for the U.S. Government budget and the U.S. economy. Now, I'd like to repeat what one of my Facebook friends said, and that is President Kennedy's administration was called Camelot. A good name for President Trump's administration, the Avengers. And we, the American people, we say, bring it. And now a short prayer. So the prayer God selected for today is about sievers, which is the word God uses for secret backdoors into software, to facilitate hacking. So the name, this prayer is based on Obadiah, Job 40 and 41. Strike the sievers. We ask, Father, for your angels of AI technology to strike the sievers of many colors embedded in our servers upon earth. And let your words, O Lord, come to pass and bring down their nest in the stars and Leviathan in deep oceans and Behemoth in all sandy deserts. And we thank you, God the Father, God the Son, Jesus, whom many call Yeshua, and God the Holy Spirit. I say to my family and friends, remain steady out there. Continue to pray. God is in charge, and He is on the move. I love you, and I'll see you soon.